Alright, in this video we're just going to be covering some issues that a customer is having with idle oscillation and dropping or unstable idle with the fans coming on. So this can be kind of tricky to dial out if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, but it's also pretty simple whenever you actually see exactly what's going on and what's causing the idle to fluctuate. So what we're going to do here, if we look just right off the bat, this first section here is with the idle stable. This is with the fan off. And you'll note it's right around 1100 and the battery voltage is like 13.4 or 13.6. Okay? And we'll get right to this point. He's going to turn the fan on and you can instantly watch that battery voltage drop to 12.4. And you can also look at the idle trim, which is this purple line, and the ignition advance, which is the blue line, and you can see those start to fluctuate. You can also see the idle valve percentage start to fluctuate and go up from its base where it was at 10 with the idle normal to where it is now. It starts fluctuating to try to keep the idle stable. So the whole reason this is doing this is actually because the car is lean because the battery offset for the injectors. I mean, if you look here, it goes from 13.6 and drops right down to 12.4, 12.5. It dropped a whole, 1 volt, and it also leaned the car out. So if you look at the air fuel, it was, right at 15.2. You turn that on, and it instantly jumps up 1 point or more. And then as soon, since this is an 850cc injector car, it's not going to like idling at anything over 15.0 or even, in the 16, 17. So that's obviously what's causing the RPM to drop and also causing the idle to become very unstable. So a couple things that make this even worse are the idle trims. And when I went through this tune, so we'll go to the idle section. This is what was going on. If you look here, when the idle drops, it's going from its normal 20 degrees closed timing to 25. So instantly right there it adds 5 degrees. The other thing it does is we have the idle air, which also is going to add timing whenever the RPM drops. So what that does, it adds, its normal timing is 15, 16 degrees. It adds, 17 degrees or so when you add the 5 degrees here between 20 and 25 and your idle ignition trim, which is 12 degrees. So we get 17 degrees advance right off the bat. And then that bumps the idle up along with the idle air control duty. And once it goes past its target idle, it drops it back down. So you look and see it drops at another -12, which pulls the ignition advance down to 6 here. So you can see the idle air and the idle air control valve are doing their job and trying to get the idle to smooth, to be stable. But the biggest issue here is that the car is still lean and it's struggling to idle at that lean of an air fuel. And the things that make it worse are definitely the idle trims and the fact that this timing table has kind of a gap in it, and it might be a little over advanced for what we have. So things that kind of correct this. So what I would do, since I don't actually have the car in front of me, first thing I would do is completely smooth out this idle table. So I take it here, and we'll just make it 15. So then that way it's smooth, it's not adding any or subtracting any. We're going to let the actual idle air ignition table, which is here, do that job for us. And what I did, I actually smoothed this out. So this used to go up to -12. You see here where it went down to -12. That would have been here. I pulled that down so it's only taking 4 degrees out. And I'll do the same thing with the advance. So the maximum possible idle trim that we're going to have now is -4 and +4. So it's not going to move quite as much. It's still going to be enough to help keep the idle in check, but it's not going to be that huge swing that we had before. Now, the other thing we're going to look at is the actual fuel table. So if you look here, we're idling nice and steady right in the 20-inch table or a 20-inch column. So when the fan kicks on, it moves. And it leans out. So one of these things that we're going to do is address the fuel table. So we can go in here, we'll bump this up. We'll bump this up. So you can tell instantly that it was lean whenever it went into here. So what we're going to do is just bump these up so when it goes into that section of the table, it's not quite as lean. It seems to me that this is going to fix most of the issue. Now the other part that we need to address is the battery offset. So if you look here, 13.6 to 12.6, that's 1 volt drop. So if we go into fuel trims and we go to an injector battery offset trims, you can see here, I'll lower this a little bit. So we have our battery offset 13.6, and then it drops to 1.1, and so on. If we go through here, we can help smooth this out a little bit. You can kind of tell immediately that it's definitely going to need some fuel in the the 12.4, 12.6 area, and the 13.6, like in the 13.3 to 14.0 area, it's probably pretty close. But you can tell right here, as soon as you go from 13.3 to 12.7, there's no way these values are ever going to be the same. It's just really not possible. So, that instantly tells me that there's something going to be wrong. A quick little fix for this would be to go in and add, we could do something like that. Now that'll add a good bit to the battery offset. That'll at least take care of some of the issue. So when you're looking at something like this, there's a bunch of things that go into it. It's just not one set thing that's going to cause the issue. The other thing here is that why is the battery voltage dropping from 13.6 to 12.4, 12.6? The RPM is still the same. Yes, we do have more load on with the fan, but the alternator should be able to keep that voltage steady, like even with the extra load. So some things that you could look at would be engine grounds, chassis grounds, battery grounds. Make sure everything is mechanically in order. I'm not saying that there's necessarily something wrong here, but it jumps out at me that if I turn the fan on and it drops 1 volt or more, and doesn't kind of stabilize out after it kicks on, that there might be an issue, and that's something that you also might have to address. You can use these logs and graphs to help kind of check out or analyze an issue that you might be having. So this is just something that I look at, and this might help some people understand how the idle trims work, how to stabilize and smooth out the idle a little bit. But there are a lot of things that go into getting a bigger injector car to idle properly. If you're not used to kind of tweaking all the little variables, it can definitely be a challenge sometimes. So I'll post this up if anybody has any questions, and maybe I'll post all the changes that I ended up making to this tune, to kind of help it out. The biggest thing we're going to be changing is going to be the injector battery offset and the idle trims, and that should help this car out a good bit from when the fans kick on, to help keep it from stalling and help keep it a stable idle so it's not surging. So, alright.